Taehyun Kang rubbed his tired eyes as he added the final notes to his research log. The clock on his tablet showed 23:47. Another late night at Outpost Theta. The small research station orbited the gas giant Helios 7, serving as humanity's forward scientific post in this newly explored sector of space. The soft knock at his door surprised him. Most of the station's 50 crew members were asleep by now. "Enter," he called, expecting Dr. Kim with questions about tomorrow's experiment. The door slid open with a gentle hiss. Standing in the corridor was not Dr. Kim, but a creature Taehyun had only seen in briefing holograms until now. She stood about 5 feet tall, with delicate limbs and skin that seemed to glow a soft blue from within. Her eyes were large and iridescent, shifting colors slightly as she blinked at him. "Can I sleep next to you tonight, human?" The alien asked in perfect English, though her translator gave it a distinct Korean accent that matched his own native tongue. "I am Neri. The sounds of your station, they frighten me." Taehyun nearly dropped his stylus. The Varian delegation had arrived at Outpost Theta just yesterday, humanity's first diplomatic contact with the species. The meeting had been formal, brief, and heavily supervised by both security teams. No one had mentioned they might make personal visits to crew quarters. "That's not really appropriate," he replied carefully, trying to hide his shock. "Humans typically sleep alone." Neri took a hesitant step into his room. The blue glow from her skin cast gentle shadows across the sparse furnishings. A bed, desk, chair, and small shelf of physical books Taehyun kept as reminders of Earth. "Your species values privacy. I understand this concept," Neri said. The markings on her skin, intricate patterns that ran along her arms and face, dimmed slightly. "But among my people, sleeping alone is painful, like hunger, but worse." Taehyun stood up slowly, not wanting to appear threatening. His xenobiology training had covered many alien physiologies, but the Varian were new to human science. Their biology was mostly unknown beyond basic scans. "Are you saying you need company to sleep?" he asked. Neri nodded, her movements surprisingly human-like. "Our bodies require proximity to others during rest cycles. On our ships and homes, we sleep in groups." Taehyun glanced at the small communication panel by his door. He should probably call security, or at least his supervisor. This was well outside protocol for first contact procedures. But something in the way Neri's light dimmed was that the Varian equivalent of distress made him hesitate. "Why come to me? There are other Varian on the station. The quarters you gave us are—" She paused, searching for words, too loud. "The walls buzz with your machines. The others are used to it. I am not." Taehyun realized she must be referring to the environmental systems that hummed constantly through the station walls, something humans barely noticed after a few days. "And why my room specifically?" he pressed. "I observed you during the grading ceremony. You watched us with curiosity, not fear." Her markings pulsed gently. "Your eyes are kind." Taehyun sighed. He was already breaking at least 3 regulations by having this conversation without reporting it. Station Director Park would have his job if he found out. Yet he couldn't bring himself to send her away if she was genuinely in distress. "I can arrange a floor mat," he said finally. "Just for tonight." The change in Neri was immediate. Her skin brightened noticeably, and the patterns on her arms formed beautiful swirling designs that hadn't been there before. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality the translator couldn't fully capture. Taehyun pulled an extra sleep mat from his storage compartment and laid it on the floor beside his bed. He added a pillow and blanket, though he wasn't sure if Varian even used such things. "This is acceptable?" he asked. Neri nodded and gracefully lowered herself to the mat. "Your kindness will be remembered, Taehyun Kang." He hadn't told her his name. As he dimmed the lights and returned to his own bed, Taehyun realized he'd just opened a door that couldn't easily be closed. Whatever happened next would change his understanding of the Varian forever. In the darkness, Neri's gentle blue glow was oddly comforting. The last thing Taehyun saw before drifting to sleep was the peaceful pattern of light pulsing across her skin. Taehyun's fingers moved quickly across his tablet as he recorded observations about Vaerine's cellular structure. The small samples Neri had allowed him to take revealed fascinating differences from human biology. Their cells contained structures that seemed to produce the bioluminescence visible through their skin. Your breathing changes when you're fascinated, Neri observed from her position on the floor mat beside his bed. The temporary arrangement from 2 weeks ago had become routine. Each night, she would arrive at his quarters, and each morning, she would leave before the station's day cycle began. Taehyun looked up, surprised. Does it? Yes. It becomes deeper, slower. Your shoulders relax. She tilted her head slightly. And your eyes widened just a bit. Taehyun set his tablet down. Your species is remarkably perceptive. We need to be, Neri replied. She ran her hand along her arm, sending a small pulse of light across her skin that rippled in a wave pattern. Vaerine survived through connection. We read tiny changes in each other to coordinate and communicate, like a form of body language. More than that, she sat up straighter, her eyes serious. Isolation can kill us within days. Without proximity to others, our nervous systems begin to fail. It starts with pain, then organ function declines. Taehyun frowned. That's why sleeping alone was painful for you. Neri nodded. My people evolved as a communal species. Being separated is not natural for us. Before Taehyun could ask more questions, the door to his quarters slid open without the customary request for entry. Director Ju stood in the doorway, her normally friendly face hardening at the sight of Neri on the floor. Dr. Kang, a word, she said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. Taehyun followed her into the corridor, where she activated a privacy field. The faint hum indicated their conversation wouldn't be overheard. Scientists aren't supposed to keep pets, Taehyun, Ju said quietly. She's not a pet, he replied, feeling a flush of indignation. She's teaching me about Vaerine physiology. Their bioelectrical systems are unlike anything we've encountered before. I understand your fascination, but this arrangement looks inappropriate to the rest of the crew. Juwoo's face softened slightly. And to our superiors. The Alliance is watching our interactions with the Vaerine closely. One mistake could affect diplomatic relations. She needs proximity to others to remain healthy, Taehyun explained. It's a biological necessity for her species. Then she should be with her own kind. Juwoo sighed. Just be careful. Document everything. This isn't just about science anymore. After Juwoo left, Taehyun returned to find Neri standing by his viewport, looking at the gas giant they orbited. Your leader is concerned, she stated simply. She's worried about appearances. Neri turned to face him. Would you like to see how my people normally live? It might help you understand. 30 minutes later, Taehyun followed Neri through the station to the section assigned to the Vaerine delegation. The doors opened to reveal a large open chamber that had been completely transformed. The standard station furniture had been removed, and the floor was covered with soft, moss-like material that emitted a faint glow. Most striking were the Vaerine themselves. Instead of using the individual sleeping quarters humans had prepared, they had created one communal space. About 20 of Neri's people rested in small groups, their bodies touching casually at shoulders, backs, or hands. Their lights pulsed in slow patterns that seemed to synchronize among those in contact with each other. This is how we naturally rest, Neri explained. The light patterns share emotional states and physical well-being. An older Vaerine with deeper blue skin and elaborate markings approached them. His movements were slower, more deliberate than Neri's. So you're the human who shelters our Neri, he said, his translator giving his voice a deep, resonant quality. I wouldn't call it sheltering, Taehyun began, feeling slightly defensive. The elder, who introduced himself as Hyun, raised a hand in a gentle gesture. No offense was meant. Neri has told our council about your kindness. Hyun studied Taehyun's face with intensity. She chose well, he said simply. You have kind eyes. Taehyun wasn't sure how to respond. I'm learning a great deal about your people. And we about yours, Hyun replied. This station is the beginning of something important between our species. Later, as they walked back to Taehyun's quarters, Neri explained more about Vayrine society. Their communal nature had shaped everything from their architecture to their government structure, which functioned through consensus rather than hierarchy. Why did you really come to my room that first night? Taehyun asked suddenly. There were other options. You could have stayed with your people. Neri was quiet for a moment, her skin pulsing with subtle patterns. Among my people, I am what you might call a pathfinder. I sense opportunities for connection where others might not look. And you sensed that with me? Yes, she said simply. Some humans fear difference. You embrace it. That makes you rare, Taehyun, and valuable for what comes next. What does come next? He asked. Neri's skin brightened slightly. Understanding. Then perhaps friendship between our worlds. Taehyun placed his hand on the lab scanner, waiting for the familiar green light that would grant him access to the xenobiology research lab. Instead, a harsh red glow appeared. Access denied, said the station computer in its flat, emotionless voice. Taehyun tried again, thinking he might have positioned his hand incorrectly. The same red light flashed. There must be a system error, he muttered. He entered his override code on the keypad. Override. Kang Theta 7. Security clearance revoked, replied the computer. Taehyun stood still, confused. His clearance had never been revoked before. As lead xenobiologist, he needed access to continue his research on Vayrine physiology. Dr. Kang. The voice behind him made Taehyun turn. Minho, the head of station security, stood with two security officers behind him. Minho's face was serious, his usually friendly eyes now cold and professional. We need to talk, Minho said. We've detected unauthorized access to human biological data from your quarters. Classified information about our immune systems and neural patterns was accessed at 200 hours. That's impossible, Taehyun said immediately. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. Neri had been in his quarters last night. He had fallen asleep while she was still using his terminal, reading what he thought were cultural exchange files. The system logs don't lie, Minho said quietly. Your credentials were used. Either you accessed restricted data without authorization, or someone using your terminal did. Taehyun felt his stomach tighten. I need to speak with Director Juwoo. She's the one who ordered your clearance suspended, Minho replied. I suggest you return to your quarters while we investigate. Throughout the day, Taehyun noticed changes around the station. Security personnel were more visible in the corridors. The easy exchanges between humans and Vayrine that had developed over the past month had disappeared. At dinner in the mess hall, Taehyun observed another troubling sign. The Vayrine, who had gradually integrated with humans during meals, now sat separately. They formed a tight cluster, their backs to the human crew members, their skin patterns subdued. Taehyun tried to catch Neri's eye, but she didn't look in his direction. Elder Hyun, however, did glance at him briefly. His expression was unreadable, but the patterns on his skin pulsed with rapid, sharp movements Taehyun had never seen before. When Taehyun returned to his quarters, he checked his terminal. All research files were blocked. His messages to Director Juwoo went unanswered. Even the station newsfeed was restricted. The quiet knock at his door came later than usual, well after midnight. When he opened it, Neri slipped inside quickly, her movements nervous. What's happening? Taehyun asked immediately. Why are the Vayrine isolating themselves? And did you access restricted files from my terminal? Neri's skin was dimmer than he had ever seen it, the vibrant blue now a dull, muted color. The beautiful patterns that usually danced across her skin were still, like frozen rivers. Our elders fear your people's intentions, she replied quietly. They'd forbidden contact with humans. We are to remain in our quarters except for official functions. Yet you're here, Taehyun noted. Neri looked down at the floor, her hands clasped tightly together. I would become ill without you nearby. Taehyun noticed her hesitation. After a month of observing Vayrine communication, he had learned to read their physical cues. That's not the whole truth, is it? I need proximity to survive, yes, she said. But it doesn't have to be you specifically. That was not entirely honest of me. Taehyun stepped closer. Neri, did you access restricted files about human biology from my terminal? She turned away, her back to him. There are things I haven't told you. Like what? Taehyun felt his heart racing. Everything they had built over the past month. The trust, the cultural exchange, the friendship suddenly seemed to be crumbling. The Vayrine Council intercepted communications between your military leaders, Neri said after a long pause. They speak of using our biological dependency on proximity as a weakness, of studying ways to weaponize isolation against us. That's absurd, Taehyun protested. The science division wouldn't approve such research. Your science division doesn't control your military, Neri countered. We've seen this pattern before with other species. Initial friendship, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, all while the military prepares for conflict. So you accessed our biological data as what? Preparation for a fight. Neri finally turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the dim light of the room. For protection. To understand if your people could truly harm us as they discussed. You could have asked me, Taehyun said, feeling betrayed. Would you have betrayed your people's secrets? She asked simply. Taehyun had no answer. The silence between them stretched uncomfortably. The council believes conflict is inevitable, Neri finally said. But I don't. That's why I'm here, against their orders, because I believe there's another way forward. What way? I don't know yet, she admitted, but it starts with truth between us, all truth, no matter how difficult. Taehyun couldn't sleep. The conversation with Nari had left him troubled. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if everything they had shared was built on deception. The station's night cycle hummed quietly around him. The familiar sounds usually comforting, but now just adding to his unease. The explosion came without warning. The entire room shook violently. Alarms blared as emergency lights began flashing their harsh red warning. Taehyun was thrown from his bed onto the floor, his head narrowly missing the corner of his desk. As he struggled to his feet, he realized Neri was already standing, her skin glowing brighter than he had ever seen it. Her posture was alert, tense. What's happening? He asked, grabbing for his uniform. Kizan raiders, she whispered, moving to help him up. They've come for both our peoples. Taehyun had heard of the Kizan, a mercenary species known for attacking vulnerable outposts and ships, taking whatever resources they could carry and destroying what remained. The station's emergency system crackled to life. All personnel to evacuation zones. This is not a drill. Hostile boarding in progress in sections 7, 12, and 15. Taehyun grabbed his emergency pack and emergency breather mask. We need to get to evacuation zone B. It's closest. They moved quickly through corridors now filled with frightened station personnel rushing toward safety. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making every few steps uncertain. In the distance, they could hear weapons fire. When they reached the main corridor leading to the evacuation zone, Taehyun froze. A Kizan soldier stood at the far end, nearly 7 feet tall with a reptilian appearance, heavily armored, and carrying a weapon Taehyun didn't recognize. Worse, the raider had cornered 3 human children, the sons and daughter of the station's hydroponic specialists. We need to help them, Taehyun said, looking around for a weapon or comm unit to call security. But before he could move, Nari darted past him. Her movements were faster than he had ever seen, almost blurring as she ran toward the Kizan. Nari, stop, he called out, terrified for her safety. The Kizan turned, raising its weapon. Nari's skin suddenly flared with a blinding white-blue light, so intense that Taehyun had to shield his eyes. When he could see again, the Kizan soldier was on the ground, unmoving. The children stood huddled together, scared but unharmed. Nari, however, was swaying dangerously on her feet. Taehyun rushed to her side just as her knees buckled. "How did you?" he began, catching her before she fell. "Neural disruption," she gasped, her skin now dim, almost gray. "It's a defense mechanism, but it takes much energy." "You never mentioned Vereen could do that," Taehyun said, helping her toward the children, who looked at her with wide, grateful eyes. "There's much I haven't told you," she admitted. Her voice was weak. "It's why we wanted your biological data, to see if humans were compatible." "Compatible for what?" Taehyun asked, gesturing for the children to follow as they continued toward the evacuation zone. "For bonding," Neri said. "When we sleep near someone, neural pathways begin to align. The first night I came to you wasn't about fear, Taehyun. It was about trust. The beginning of a bond." Taehyun stopped walking, stunned by the revelation. "You've been forming a bond with me all this time. What does that even mean?" She nodded weakly. "It allows us to protect those we care for. The closer the bond, the stronger the protection we can offer." They reached the evacuation zone, where medical staff immediately took Nari to an emergency cot. Her skin was still alarmingly dim. "Will she be okay?" one of the children asked Taehyun. "I hope so," he answered honestly. Director Ju appeared at his side, looking harried but composed. "Dr. Kang, I see you made it safely." Her eyes moved to Nari on the medical cot. "And your companion. She saved those children," Taehyun said firmly. "She used some kind of neural disruption ability against a Kizan raider, nearly drained herself doing it." Juwoo's expression changed slightly. "The security feeds confirm it. We've never seen the Vereen use such abilities before." "Because they've been hiding them," Taehyun replied. "They thought we might see it as a threat, just as we've been hiding things from them." A medical technician approached them. "The Vereen's life signs are stabilizing, but slowly. Her neural activity is unusual. There's a pattern we can't identify." "Let me see," Taehyun said, following the technician to a monitor displaying Nari's brain scan. What he saw made him gasp. The pattern was familiar, because part of it matched his own neural signature, which had been recorded in his medical file. Somehow, a piece of his own brain pattern was present in Nari's mind. "The bond is real," he whispered. "What bond?" Ju asked sharply. Taehyun turned to her. "Director, we've misunderstood the Vereen completely. Their need for proximity isn't just comfort or cultural. It's how they form protective connections. Nari hasn't been spying. She's been trying to protect us in the only way her species knows how." As if responding to his words, Nari's skin brightened slightly on the cot. The patterns that had been still began to pulse again, weak but persistent. "Their abilities aren't weapons," Taehyun continued. "They're shields, and we need to understand them better, especially now that we have a common enemy." The Joint Council chamber on Outpost Theta had never been so full. Humans sat on one side, Vereen on the other. 2 weeks had passed since the Kizan attack that had damaged nearly a third of the station. 12 people had died, 7 humans, and 5 Vereen, before the raiders were repelled. Taehyun stood in the center of the room, feeling the weight of all eyes upon him. Nari stood beside him, her skin glowing with calm, steady patterns. She had recovered fully from her neural exertion during the attack. Director Ju opened the session. "This meeting will determine the future relationship between our peoples. Recent events have revealed misunderstandings on both sides." Elder Hyun nodded gravely from the Vereen section. The patterns on his skin pulsed in slow, deliberate waves that Taehyun had learned indicated formal acknowledgement. "Dr. Kang has requested to address both delegations," Ju continued. "As the human with the most direct experience with Vereen physiology, We will hear him first. Taehyun stepped forward. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. The varying capacity for neural bonding isn't a weapon or a threat, he explained, looking at both sides of the room. It's a biological necessity and a gift. Their empathic abilities can sense dangers we can't detect. He activated a display showing brain scans, his own alongside Nari's. When Varyns sleep near others, their neural patterns begin to synchronize. This creates a connection that allows them to sense emotions, physical states, and even nearby threats. The night Nari saved those children, she was able to detect the Kizan's hostile intent and respond because of her bond with me. Murmurs spread through the human delegation. One of the military officers leaned forward. Are you saying they can read our minds? No, Nari answered before Taehyun could. We sense emotional states and physical well-being. Thoughts remain private. The bond allows us to protect, not to invade. Elder Hyun stepped forward, his movements slow and dignified. We concealed this truth, fearing exploitation. Our history with other species taught us caution. When we detected your military's interest in our biology, we became afraid. He turned to face the human delegation directly. But Nari's bond with Dr. Kang protected your children. Perhaps there is another way forward than suspicion. The room fell silent. Taehyun could feel the moment balancing on a knife's edge. Director Jiwoo studied them thoughtfully, her fingers tapping slowly on the table. What are you proposing, exactly? Cohabitation, Taehyun answered. Voluntary sharing of living spaces. Humans who choose to can host Vayrine companions. In return, we gain protection through their sensory abilities. Both species benefit. And those who don't wish to participate, asked a human scientist, would be free to maintain their privacy, Elder Hyun assured. We seek partnership, not invasion. The debate lasted hours. Security concerns, privacy rights, and practical arrangements were all discussed in detail. Medical data was shared openly between the species for the first time. The Vayrine revealed how their neural bonds had protected their communities for generations, sensing dangers from natural disasters to hostile intentions. In the end, the vote was not unanimous, but the majority supported a trial program of voluntary cohabitation. 3 months later, Outpost Theta had transformed. The formerly sterile corridors now featured both human furnishings and the soft phosphorescent moss the Vayrine preferred. Common areas had been redesigned to accommodate the communal nature of Vayrine social gatherings, while preserving spaces for humans who valued privacy. Nearly 40% of the human crew had chosen to participate in the cohabitation program. The results had been remarkable. Accident rates dropped as Vayrine companions sensed danger before it occurred. Several medical emergencies were detected early when Vayrine noticed subtle changes in their human partners' physical states. Most surprising to station leadership was the effect on morale. The presence of beings naturally attuned to emotional well-being had created a more harmonious environment throughout the station. Taehyun sat at his desk, updating the latest version of the Cultural Exchange Protocol. As the newly appointed Director of Interspecies Relations, he was responsible for documenting the evolving relationship between humans and Vayrine. His door chimed softly. Enter, he called, smiling as he anticipated who it would be. Nari stepped inside, her skin glowing with the rich blue patterns that indicated contentment. She wore the new uniform designed for Vayrine serving as official station personnel, her role as assistant director recognized formally by both species. The Alliance Committee has approved our expansion proposal, she said. 3 more stations will implement our cohabitation program next month. That's excellent news, Taehyun replied, setting down his tablet. Nari moved closer, her patterns shifting to the more personal, intimate designs she showed only when they were alone. In the months since the attack, their bond had deepened beyond what either had imagined possible. It wasn't romantic in the human sense, but it was profound. A connection that transcended the boundaries of their different biologies. The day cycle is ending, she said, her eyes meeting his. Can I sleep next to you tonight, human? The question was asked with what Taehyun now recognized as a smile, a particular pattern of light that rippled across her cheeks. Always, Taehyun replied, understanding the true weight of the simple question that had changed everything. What had begun as an unexpected intrusion had transformed into a bridge between worlds. As they prepared for rest, Taehyun reflected on how a single night, a moment of kindness shown to a stranger, had altered the course of human history. The first Varine human trading vessels would launch next year. Cultural exchanges were flourishing, and it had all begun with a knock on his door. "Your thoughts are happy," Neri observed as she settled onto her sleeping mat, now a permanent fixture beside his bed. "They are," he agreed. "I was just thinking about beginnings." "And endings?" she asked. "No," Taehyun said softly as the room lights dimmed. "I don't think this story has an ending yet, just more beginnings."